Understanding the fundamentals of design is the first step to creating visuals that have cohesiveness and harmony. When we look at a design piece, we're looking at a well-orchestrated composition. And by organizing these elements in a thoughtful way, we can create more than just visuals, and these are design pieces that communicate a lot more. Hi, my name is Laura Kyung, and I am a graphic designer with over 15 years of experience. In this course, we will dive into 7 of the most basic elements in design that can help you improve your design skills, your ability to communicate through design, how to describe design pieces, and finesse your design sensibility. I'll show you real-life examples and assets from Envato Elements so you can understand all about the basic elements of design. Envato Elements is a great resource for high-quality templates, photographs, fonts, and much more. Once you understand the elements of design, you can move on to the principles of design, and that can help you organize all of these basic structural elements on a page. Let's take a look at the first basic element. Lines are the most basic elements of design. They come in all different shapes, sizes, and colors. And once you understand them, you'll be able to see them even when they're not there. So let's take a look at this first example. We can see that the lines are moving from bottom left to top right. So they're indicating direction. There is a sense of movement. We're moving from point A to point B. The top right corner is where the information is. So these lines are directing us there. And the thickness of the lines have also communicates something. So thin lines are elegant, while thicker lines tend to look strong. They have more presence. So this is a very successful way of using lines that are very visible. On the second example, we have wavy lines that communicate movement. They're not straight. Straight lines usually communicate structure, and they are more rigid. So wavy lines are a different type of grid. They add a little bit more of a chaotic energy, and straight lines would just indicate order. In this case, the lines are superimposing each other. They're creating a very different type of grid, waves, so they are more relaxed. And on this last example, the lines are being used to cut the direction of the image. So the subject on the image is looking towards the right, and then we have the line crossing toward the left side. We also have to pay attention to how this line is used in contrast to the organic image, to the waves, something so organic that has so much movement. So the lines tend to add more rigidity. So here the line is also supporting the neatly designed information by dividing the top from the bottom information. Lines also can be seen as grids. So in this example, we can see that there is probably a 4 to 5 column grid. And once you start to see this, you will be looking at design compositions in a different way. You'll be able to see if they're using a rule of thirds or how many columns they're using on one page or a poster. And that's really useful to figure out how a specific design composition is working through balance or variety and all of those other principles. So next, let's take a look at shape. A shape is the result of enclosed lines to form a boundary. Shapes are two-dimensional, and they can be classified as geometric, organic, and abstract. Geometric shapes are often mathematical and have structure. They're very precise. They can be squares, circles, or rectangles, triangles. So in this example, we have a pattern made up of different geometric shapes. We have exact triangles, squares, curves, circles. So this specific image doesn't really represent anything from real life. And this type of shapes communicate structure and rigidity because they are so exact. Next, we have organic shapes. And these are, they lack well-defined edges and often feel more natural and smooth. In this case, this fluid shape gives the notion of liquid and natural movement. And the mix of colors also emphasize the depth of the organic shape. And last, we have abstract shapes. So these are more minimalist representations of reality. And for instance, a stick figure of a person is an abstract shape. Here we have a trumpet and a violin that have been redesigned with geometric shapes, exact circles, straight lines, mathematical curves, but they represent something in real life. Another example of abstract shapes usually are logos. Logos are distilled to their more basic shapes. So we can see sometimes elephants or bears that have been distilled to something very basic, depending on what the concept is for the logo. Next up, we have form. Form or positive space. Anything like a dot, line, or shape that is resting over the space. Form and space are mutually dependent, so altering one would alter the other. And we can use these two concepts to add 3D qualities to a design or create tension, and that will keep the user engaged. So let's take a look at some examples here. And this first image is the perfect example of positive-negative relationship. The positive space is the hand and the bottom of the light bulb. And this play of the shape between the hand cupping to create a light bulb with a negative space makes the poster even more interesting and impactful for the user. So in this case, again, the hand and the bottom of the light bulb are the positive element and the background would be the negative element. On this next example, we have a cover, and here the type elements and the photo are the positive space. And this is a good example again of balance between positive and negative space. The cover feels airy, the photo helps in it being 50% white, and the dark elements are very few. While there are elements that cover most of the page, there is still a good balance between the two concepts. And then we have this awesome poster example that it is also a great example of display of positive and negative space. So the positive space is the image and the text. The image has a very cool red-blue treatment, and then we have the text that is placed over the negative space. So in this case, the negative space is the white space or the white background. Next up is space or negative space. Space is the area that surrounds a shape and that creates a form. So think of it as music, and space would be the silence between the notes of a song. If all the notes were played together, then that would create noise. So if you look at a design piece, the negative space is the area that is not occupied by any elements. And if we look at this first example, the negative space is the black area. So while there is play between positive and negative space and minimalism, this poster feels balanced. There isn't an equal amount of positive and negative space, but the relationship of the elements to the background make it more balanced. And this relationship also creates a play with the element or the icon that is being shown in the image. We can see a fork, some bottles of wine, and then we have the information at the very top right. So if this information was scattered around the black space or the negative space, then it would create too much noise. So we're creating organization and a good composition, a very minimalist composition, by having just the information at the top right corner. On this next example, we have an abstract neon sign image, and the black background is also the negative space. So this is a good example of an airy image. We have a very busy neon design, and that is contrasted by the margin around it and the black background. So there's a good amount of margin, no obstructions on the image, and that makes it feel very airy. And then if we want to create this relationship to musical notes, let's say, the smaller the elements, the higher the pitch of the sound, and well, the heavier the element, the lower the pitch. So here we can see that each corner contains a small element, and the main image is right in the center. while there are many elements on this design, the negative space is used to add abundant lightness. So if you look at a design piece, the negative space is the area that is not occupied by any element. So there is a lot of airiness, there is a lot of clarity within this design. We can very easily spot where the information that we need is placed on. And this again helps the user. It's all ultimately for the user that we're designing for. So that is negative space. And next we have color. Color. We can apply color to any of the elements that we have talked about before this point. And color can add emphasis and a mood to a specific design. It also depends on the connotation that the specific color is associated with. So there are different characteristics with color. Let's start with hue. Hue is the name of a color in its purest form, so there is no white or black or gray added to it. So for instance, cyan, magenta, and green are pure colors. Next up, we have shade. And shade is the addition of black to a hue in order to make a darker version of it. So in this example, we can see that the blue has different shades from its normal hue to darker areas. And this can also add a lot of depth. Next, we have tint, and tint is the addition of white to a color to make a lighter version of it. So in this example, we can see that the purple has some white added in some parts, and the combination of the tint and the hue gives this abstract shape more dimension and more depth. Next, we have tone, and tone is the addition of gray to make a color a little bit more muted. These colors tend to look a little bit muddy sometimes or dirty. So this example features colors that have gray in them, therefore not looking bright or too light or too dark. Instead, it looks just muted. Next, we have saturation, and saturation refers to the purity of a color. So a specific color is most intense when it is not mixed and with white or black. And on this example, we can see a mix of mostly saturated colors and a few desaturated areas, like here where there is an illusion of a shadow. So that creates more depth. In design, there are two color systems. We have RGB and CMYK. RGB is a system dedicated to digital design. So this additive system stands for red, green, and blue. The colors are produced by adding primary colors together to create various combinations. So this mode should be used for designs that will only be used on screens. If you want to output your design as a printed piece, then you have to work with CMYK, and it is very, very important that when you create a new file, be in InDesign or Photoshop or Illustrator, that you set the right color space right from the get-go. Otherwise, if you try to, let's say, convert CMYK to RGB or the other way around, it usually happens, the colors can look muted. So CMYK stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. Black is the K for key. And that's it for color. Next, we have value. Value refers to the darkness or lightness of a specific hue. So for instance, yellow has a lighter value compared to purple, because purple is a darker color. So if we were to transform these two colors into black and white or gray, yellow tends to be lighter and purple is darker. Value in a design piece adds contrast and depth. So let's take a look at some examples here. On this first example, we can see a mix of light and dark colors. So this is a contrast in values. And InDesign, using different tonal values can create, again, contrast, but also the illusion of movement by overlapping multiple elements with different values. So again, if we turn this image into grayscale, we can see a high contrast between light and dark. On this particular example, if we switch the image again into black and white, we can see that the value of the orange and the blue are the same. So while these two colors are contrasting, the values avoid making them as contrasting as they could be. So that's a reason why the design can look flat sometimes. We can also see that there's gradation here and here, and that means that there is high value between this, and that creates an illusion of movement by overlapping multiple elements with different values. In photography, a high value image is airy and light, and this image is taken with lots of light, and if turned into black and white, it will be mostly light, compared to this other image that is mostly dark values, making the image more dramatic and heavy. So next up, let's take a look at texture. Texture adds a tactile appearance to a design. The goal here is to add depth to a 2D surface. So texture can be applied graphically through the use of patterns or either digitally created texture that mimics real life, or they can be also used as actually embossing a, let's say, a design like a business card, or using a textural paper. As examples here, we have a halftone image that resembles old zines, pop art, or even old newspapers, and depending on the size of the halftone and concentration, it is possible to create shadow and light. So while the texture is 2D, it can add a 3-dimensional quality to the image because of the different sizes of the dots. Next up, we have this chalk texture, and this is highly texturized. It can be used to enhance the design by giving hints of a specific concept for the artwork. So for instance, we can use this type of texture on a school poster, elementary school poster more specifically. It will really help bring it up to life, even if the actual texture is not existing when you touch it, but at least it is there visually. Textures can also be physical, so like we mentioned, embossing a business card or a paper, using different papers that have texture, that can really elevate the design for your end user. It can look like it's high quality, it is more memorable, and when it is well done, it can also look very expensive and special. So it is a nice touch for the user. And now let's take a look at the conclusion for this course. In this course, I show you the basic elements of design. Understanding these building blocks will help you create successful design pieces. We looked at how line can add direction, the different shape classifications, the relationship between form and space, or positive and negative space, color characteristics, value contrasts, and texture benefits. As a professional working designer, you will need to know how to describe your design piece to your clients. And training your eyes can help you grow as a designer and also achieve a higher level of design sensibility. If you're looking for creative templates, be sure to check out Envato Elements. It is a great resource with photographs, fonts, graphic templates, and many more assets. If you're new to design, be sure to check out our courses and videos on our channel. My name is Laura Kyung, and from all of us at Envato Tuts Plus, thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.